Hello and good afternoon to all of you here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're tuning in from, or if you're tuning in after the fact. Thanks for being here regardless. I'm Caroline Milton, owner of Milton Coaching Collective. We provide stress management and burnout prevention strategies for individuals and organizations. I'm all about the support of women in STEM, and that's what led me to start my business, is to help equip women in STEM to stay in their careers and to help transform the workplace into one that is truly supportive of the advancement of women in the workplace. So last week, I came on to my weekly episode of Engineering Your Energy to talk about the most important skill that's needed in the workplace to help ensure that you are tackling this approach of burnout prevention. And that was the skill of leadership. Oftentimes, we confuse leadership with management. They are different skill sets. Some people excel in one area or the other. Some people excel in both management and leadership, but they are different skills. And leadership is necessary when you're transitioning your culture, when you're transitioning your organization into one that is taking burnout seriously and really, truly seeking to transform the workplace into one that retains talent. Right? We might not think that we have a burnout problem. We might instead have a retention problem. And therefore these tactics are still very important for you. This week, I'm going to build on that. And I want to talk about how do you talk about stress? How do you talk about burnout within your organization? I get this question a lot. How do I talk about this with my boss if I'm feeling burned out? Or for those who are in leadership positions, how do I talk about this with my team? So I want to dive into it today. There are 8 things that you need to know on how to talk about stress and burnout in the workplace. So let's dive right into it. Number 1, ensure you're the right person to have the conversation. Ensure that there are the right people in the room. And that typically means that we need to ensure that we are level-headed when we approach the topic and when we approach the conversation. But if you're not the right person to be having this conversation, perhaps you need to be engaging with the right person to have this conversation. Ensure that you're talking to the right person, right? So talking directly to your team or talking directly to your boss is the most effective way of communicating stress and burnout within the workplace. Number 2, choose the time and location with care and intentionality. Again, this probably means that you're approaching with a level-headed approach, and that you're not doing it in the height of the moment and in the tension of stress and anxiety. So ensure that you have created a neutral environment for you to have this conversation, that you've sought out the appropriate time, the appropriate location to really create this sense of safety and security for all those involved so that it can be talked about thoroughly. Number 3, know what your goals are for the conversation. All right. Think about this ahead of time. What is the outcome that I desire from having this conversation? Is it that I want more support? Is it that I need more resources? Is it that we need to redistribute the load, the workload across our teams? Know what your specific goals are for this conversation so that you can have the most effective conversation as possible with whomever is in the room. Number 4, listen to learn. Don't listen to fix. Don't listen to win. This is especially true if you are on the receiving end of this conversation, right? If someone has approached you to say, hey, I need to talk about this as an issue, make sure that you're listening to learn, to understand the opposing point of view. This is going to be one of the most effective tools for ensuring that you are that you're reaching the best possible outcome. If you're the person presenting your side of things, if you have arranged this meeting, you still need to listen to learn. You have come in with specific goals and outcomes that you desire from this conversation, but it is important for you to listen to learn because there might be obstacles that you're unaware of. There might be situations that you're unaware of. And transparency can be really helpful in these circumstances to ensure that the right strategies are being pursued as goals and objectives coming out of these conversations. Number 5, communicate the issues using facts. Be as straightforward as you can as you're communicating these issues. So use different examples of times where you've seen stress and burnout experience within the workplace and try to keep things at this point void of any charged emotions, charged feelings. Communicate the issue using facts. But while you're doing that, address your concerns objectively. Use I feel or I see or I observe statements. So you're positioning yourself objectively to discuss the conversation. Number 7, specify concrete next steps or actions that are taken out of the meeting. And if the other parties involved in the meeting are quick to adjourn before there are concrete next steps or actions that have been discussed, push back here and say, hey, before we end this meeting, I think it's really important that we understand where we're going from here, what the next steps are going to be. Is it that we get back together after we've all had some time to reflect and we action plan? Is it that this is going to be escalated to higher ranks within the organization? Or are we going to pursue resources for helping to mitigate burnout within our teams? And then finally, number 8, we want to evaluate the outcomes and goals. It's incredibly important here that we ensure that there's understanding, mutual understanding with all parties involved. So we want to check for understanding so that we're not walking away with different expectations of what's to come out of this conversation. We want to set deadlines. We want to set follow-ups, just as we do in all other parts of our business. We want to make sure that there is follow-up here to continue to move the needle within the organization to help support employees. So those are the 8 steps of how to talk about burnout, how to talk about stress, how to talk about the hard things within the workplace. Again, ensure you're the right person to have the conversation, ensure the right people are in the room. Be intentional with the time and location to create as neutral and inviting of a meeting as possible. Know what your goals are ahead of time. Listen to learn, not to fix or not to win an argument. Communicate the issue using facts and address your concerns objectively. Specify concrete next steps and actions and evaluate those outcomes and goals. Ensure that there's follow-up and ensure that that communication is happening along the way. If you have questions for me on how to implement this within your work environment, please reach out to me. In the description of this video is a link for a workplace consultation. If you feel your workplace would benefit from implementing new strategies for helping increase your retention, reduce burnout within your teams, and overall improve your productivity, workplace consultation is a great place to start. If you're struggling with this personally, I also offer individual coaching. You can reach out to me and we can get something scheduled to see if you might benefit from building your stress management toolkit, building your leadership toolkit to ensure that burnout is truly banished from your workplace. All of that information and more can be found on my website, www.miltoncc.com. Next week, I will be back on Thursday for another episode of Engineering Your Energy, diving further into these topics of what skills are needed within the workplace to ensure that your employees, your peers, and yourself are not getting burned out. So make sure, if you haven't already, follow me. You can follow my hashtag #TransformingTired, or you can go to my profile and click that follow button, click the bell on LinkedIn to stay on top of every single one of my posts and content, including these weekly videos. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week where we're going to continue to engineer your energy.